next speaker, I've actually known Tanya for over 10 years, and I've just discovered every day's a school day that she's actually Tanya. So anyway, Tanya, who has been the lead trainer for the shared care programme, is going to talk about the shared care programme. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure which pair of glasses to wear this morning. Okay. Thank you very much for asking me to speak today. And it's really nice to be able to update people on where shared care is going these days. Currently. Yeah. Okay, so the shared haemodialysis care vision has always been to provide the opportunity for all patients across the whole of the UK to have the opportunity to participate in their own care. And as you will know, I'm not telling you anything new about shared care. I'm sure everybody knows here. It's about participating in tasks that are meaningful to you. So it can be as small as just doing something like your own blood pressure to doing everything about your own dialysis. What's important to patients is the most important. So why do we want to do that? Because we know that through the very process of offering shared haemodialysis care gives people a voice again. And that's really important to patients. I heard from a patient the other week, I said, what does it mean to you? And he said, it makes me feel like I matter. I've got a place in society again. So that's a really important aspect of why we should offer shared haemodialysis care. It makes people feel seen. It provides them with some positive control over the environment where they have very little control and a lot of rules are imposed upon them right from the very start. So it gives people this sense of self-worth and a feeling of status again. They're doing something that they can achieve and feeling like themselves again, building this self-esteem and develops their confidence in a gradual way in their own ability to manage themselves. And what this does when we do all of these things, it shines a light on the people that they really are, the people that they were before they got really poorly. And it starts to illuminate the possibilities for them. They have hope all of a sudden, and they see that there's potential. And that's really important because, as we know, we want people to go home to dialyse. So if we can build that confidence in centre, then it offers the opportunity for patients to think, could I actually do this at home? So the very act of shared care changes how we behave as healthcare professionals in order to change how our patients feel, and starts to create this growth mindset as we understand what people are actually capable of doing when we give them the opportunity. And then it starts to become the default position where we start to think, well, why can't they do that for themselves? Why wouldn't they want to do their own injections? Why wouldn't they want to do their own weight and blood pressure when it's something that happens quite normally and naturally at home for themselves? So we can get them doing the smaller tasks and then move them on to more complex tasks later. And reduce this state of learned helplessness that we impose upon our patients actually unknowingly. So just a little bit about the shared care movement, because it's been going for quite some time now. As you can see, we work with the Health Foundation funding initially to change relationships, and we are still changing relationships now. It's a cultural change, isn't it? So that title that we had then is still really, really important now to see our patients in a different role. When we had the Share HD programme, we were unable to scale up what we were doing, and we worked with many trusts, and we firmed up many of the established models and resources. And now I'm working with DAYLife to this national collaboration to work with the mentoring teams, and we're looking at really standardising and sustaining what we've built so far. So this is what it looks like. I've highlighted the mentoring programme there because that's what we're going to be mainly talking about today in this presentation. But you can see this is the full shared care package here. We have the national steering group in the middle that is comprised of leaders experienced in shared care, so to direct the way forwards for shared care in the future and to understand what's going on in the whole of the country, holding it together in one group. I run the course for the teams, dialysis unit teams. I also have a staff community of practice that runs 5 times a year, and I run a patient focus group. So we've got fingers in pies all over the place that cover the whole shared care landscape. The website holds all of our resources and the QR code's there in case anybody can scan it from a distance. And as Uday mentioned, we've got the UKKA Knowledge Hub, which is holding all the KQIP resources there as well. So you can see from the slide before and the journey that we've had for shared care, it's really, really slow, this cultural change. The cogs move really slowly, and there is no single intervention. And I really like what you said there in that slide, Uday, because we're discovering, aren't we, that it's far more than just doing quality improvement. There's so many aspects to this. It's really, really complex. So one intervention in one area isn't going to work exactly the same as the same intervention in another area. And what we're trying to do is pull together some resources that can be used generally, but everybody has to start this programme in their own way. So that's really, really interesting to look at. So the aims of their shared care package at the moment for 2025 into 2026 are to increase the number of centres engaging in shared care throughout the country. We want to reach everywhere, to provide equity, support the units who already understand it but are struggling to maintain it and sustain it, particularly when things like COVID hit or they struggle with staffing. How do we keep that going, and how do we measure it in a more meaningful way than just task-related data? And encourage those that are doing really well and sharing that good practice so that we can look at what are they doing to actually sustain it, so that we can share that with the other groups. And continue to capture what's working well and why, which is what Uday was talking about as well. It's learning from each other, and that's what we're doing continuously and what we've done from the very start. We're not going to get there. We're not going to get there for quite a few years yet, but we are making slow and very steady progress, and it's really quite exciting. So the mentoring project that Uday talked about earlier is, we've got the 5 mentor units there on the left, and we've got the 5 mentee units there on the right, and they've all got slightly different starting points. We would have liked them all brand new so that we could compare and contrast, but many units were starting, they wanted to restart, and we've got a couple of new units there. So we chose the mentoring units who had good PREM scores and who had consistently shown that they were developing over the last 14 years, some of them, and had links with me. And I understood that they were dedicated, they were passionate, and they were still doing it for good reason. And we linked them with the 5 mentee centres. So they have monthly meetings with each other. We have development meetings for everybody so that we can understand what they've been doing and what the learning is, and provide them with any extra tools they might need. I have reviews with the mentors so that I can support them with any latest resources that I think would be useful to work with their mentees. And we have check-ins with the mentees as well. They've also all had shared care training and a mentoring training day that many of the mentors and mentees access. So what we want to do is establish the value of this model for the future so that we can replicate this and it be an iterative process. We need to collect some impact data. But one of the most important things is that we're still paying attention to shared haemodialysis care through a formal programme, which is really good, because that's what it needs, a constant attention to this sort of thing. Cultural change isn't just an overnight thing, and you know, although quality improvement isn't about paying attention to it, shared care actually is. We need to pay attention to it all the way through. So what's working well so far? From the mentees' point of view, we've got not a lot of data so far, but they certainly are benefiting from the regular check-ins, and they're really, really appreciating not being alone with this. They've had the training, but then they've got consistent updates with their mentors. They've got really high enthusiasm. Everybody wants to do this. Everybody's very, very keen. And it's got wider team links potential. I know that Dudley are here today. I know that there's been your dietitians and your medics are also involved in linking in with each other as well. So it's got the potential for a wider team. And of course, there's the accountability, which is great, because we learned that with Share HD, that having mentees and mentors that have to see each other and then report back to us, make sure that the jobs are done. From the mentor's point of view, it's been really interesting hearing about their own successes and their gaps, and just talking to them. It's important for me to tease out what's good about what they're doing, because actually they don't recognise how good they are, and they're doing lots of things that are completely normal for them now, and they've forgotten almost how far they've come. So I'm actually able to point out what you're doing well and why that might be working. So that's really nice for them to see what that they're recognising that just what they do is actually excellent practice. So and there's also this cross-learning, so the mentors are learning from the mentees, and it's also reminding them of other things that they perhaps had forgotten about and need to revisit, such as the staff questionnaires. What's working well for us from the programme team is it's highlighting, as I say, and reinforcing what's working. It's enabling us to spot what potential gaps there might be in resources that we might develop in the future. And having these focused groups to test ideas out is really, really important. So we've got a number of resources that we're using the mentors and mentee teams to actually use for that. So the challenges so far that it is hard to compare, because everywhere's so different, and everybody's culture is very different, and they're all at different stages, so you can't compare very easily. We can only learn from all of them. Staffing support, having the right support in the mentor and particularly in the mentee teams, is difficult. Having the right mentors there at the right time and arranging meetings has been tricky for people. It's quite challenging. Some units have struggled, as I've said, to meet, and we're looking at whether it's beneficial to have a team mentoring team or a single individual, and both have worked in our experience so far. But having a plan B, you know, and extra people to help mentor certainly is something to think about for the future. Documentation is clearly, you know, it's often inconsistent, isn't it? That's something that we're working on. But one of our main challenges, how do we know that this intervention is effective? How do we know that it's not just an enjoyable procedure and you know, kind of nice to sort of catch up with each other? How do we know that that's different from what they would have done without our intervention? So that's something to look at. So our opportunities have been that we can test out these new resources. What we want to look at is, in particular want to look at, and I've been thinking about for many, many years, is how we measure shared care in a much more meaningful way other than task data, which isn't consistent and it's not linear. We're looking at the culture itself. So we're looking at these areas here, these points here that patients have actually pointed out to us. This is what makes a good shared care unit if we have all of this. So how do units measure up according to that? And we've got a new self-assessment toolkit where we're collating evidence from the good units and saying, what evidence do you have that proves that you can do all of these things? And then we can use that self-assessment tool, hopefully with the mentee units. The units that are a bit further on, we've got a self-needling toolkit that we're developing at the moment, which is patient and staff developed, to give patients a bit more confidence and staff confidence also to have conversations about self-needling. You know, what's in it for them? What might their phobias be? Patient stories within there as well. So that's quite interesting. And if anybody wants to talk to me about either of those toolkits, then please come and see me later on. So I think that's all from me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tanya. So you're running off. We've got questions. Tanya? So any questions for Tanya? And in the meantime, I'm going to ask you, we've talked a few times actually about how to engage centres that have struggled with engagement on this. And have you got any views about how we can try and disseminate this outside of the centres that show enthusiasm for this? How do we get the centres where they've not been quite so receptive?
It's very challenging. You know, working with units that don't fully believe in this is challenging. I think all we can do is to relate to them and maybe produce stories. We've got one or two on the website already that show that people have been in your position. We felt like this, but now we're here. This is possible for you to do, and to make it as easy as possible. Sometimes people think it's really challenging and a really big program to implement, when actually it can be something very simple. It's about sort of communicating better with patients, and you can do that in a number of ways. And that's what's so good about shared care. There are so many ways in which you can implement it that it can be very flexible, but people have to make the first step and approach you with it, or we have to have face-to-face conversations, which are game changers, actually.
Fantastic. Thank you. So any other questions for Tanya? Yes.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the reasons we're trying to get a doctors group together of interested and passionate doctors who can influence other doctors. So I think it's important that they're speaking to each other on a level that's meaningful to them. So that's something in the pipeline that we're hoping that will help with that. And we're not getting support. No, that's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame.
And are you getting resistance, or is it just a lack of enthusiasm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it's about understanding, isn't it? So I think we need to work quite hard at how we promote this for different audiences, actually. Whereas it is a team approach, we still have to speak to on their own agendas, don't we? And make it.
Yeah, we had an office during COVID CIP. We moved out of a really small desk space. Not you could even put a folder there.
Yeah.
We have no space of our own, so I'll be struggling out a minute. Pushed up to be out for a while.
Yeah, environments play a big part, don't they?
Got nothing on.
I was just going to add a comment. I mean, I wasn't into shared care before I started the DAYLife program. I was talking to Tanya the other day when we met. I got sort of a bit of understanding of shared care, but most of the shared care is driven and led by nurses. As a clinician, all I do is just be in the background and support them and facilitate things for them and try and address any challenges they may have as sort of a local lead for the home dialysis program. That's my role, to try and be there for them. But most of it is driven by nurses. I think as long as you don't have resistance from your clinicians, we can just get on with it. I mean, we got a big team from Oxford here. Angela leads the program for us. Angela, you might want to say something about how you moved this forward in Oxford, because it was a thing in Oxford before, but it never really took on. And then you've gone on to become a mentoring center, and you lead the mentoring program from within Oxford. So it might be good to hear what challenges you've had and how you move forward. And really, did clinicians make a big deal, or is it just something you needed a bit of a support and you got on with it? So it'd be good to hear from you.
What we're putting in place is for clinicians to engage with patients in their clinics every 3 months. And just to mention, if you thought about shared care, if you thought about home healing, because in most of the patients, I think that is be everywhere. So I think everywhere the patient, most of the patients do what the doctor say. So they might come to you and say, "Oh, Dr. You they said about this. What about shared care?" So it helps keeps the momentum up in between patients. But I would say the majority of the work is nurses. And what has worked well is nursing engagement and a clear leadership, but equally engagement from the nursing team. And I think my 7 years, so she wants to say she can. But I think it's a lot of it is now serious. I think as long as you don't have, as Peter said, resistance, I think support from consultant is what matters.
But it may just be due to a lack of understanding about their role in this and what they can do. And they've got so many other things to do, haven't they, that they're just distancing themselves from it. So hopefully this doctors group may influence that with the role that doctors can play. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.